Awesome. Hi, everybody. Thank you for being here. Yes, if you're tired, stand up, move around. We will not be offended. My name is Shawn Nason. I am the CEO and founder of the Nason Group. We are an experienced design firm. I will give you just a very quick 15-second elevator pitch. I am a professional musician who turned pastor, who went to work for the Walt Disney Company, became a Walt Disney Imagineer, was recruited out of Walt Disney Imagineering into healthcare. Perfect move, yes, I know. Went into healthcare, then became a chief innovation officer for a higher ed institute, and left that to start my design firm back in the healthcare space. And in 2018, I started talking openly that because I worked in the behavioral health space, that we were already in the middle of a pandemic. And it was called loneliness. And in 2018, 80% of men in our country dealt with loneliness and didn't talk about it. 2020 hit, and we hit the pandemic. I was one of those men who spent 150 to 200 nights a year on the road for my job. My family was built around how we worked around that. And all of a sudden, I'm sitting in the house behind a computer. My wife wanted to kill me. My children wanted to kill me. I wanted to kill me because you lost all your identity. Came out of that and realized that we were probably even in higher numbers than that 80% at that point in loneliness. I didn't totally understand it all and how it would impact me. Until 2022, April 15th of 2022, I woke up from a routine colonoscopy and was told I had stage 3 colon cancer at the age of 49 years old. It's been a long journey. I went into remission for 22 months, had a reoccurrence September 23rd of 2024, and unbeknownst to me, found out yesterday I am back and have it again. Right before I got on the plane, I got the news. So we'll be going back. But before I go back, I leave tomorrow to go to Washington, D.C. to something called Call on Congress. I will meet with 6 or 7 legislators to fight for research money for cancer. And men, men, if you are in the room and you have not got your colonoscopy, get over your pride. Go get it done. And women too. Let me say this to you, women, it will be the #1 killing cancer in 2026 to those under the age of 50. We will plant 13,000 flags on the National Mall tomorrow. That will resemble how many, thank you. I don't love to applaud about that because what that says is 13,000 people under the age of 50 will die in 2026 from colon cancer, colon rectal cancer, because they now combined them. So I've been on a real different type of mental health journey and got involved with the real. And so, yeah, I know, Jeff, why don't you share a bit of your story and then we can talk about really how we turn this honesty into action.
Great, thanks, Shawn. And you know, it's funny you mentioned the colonoscopy. I haven't gotten one since my 45th birthday, and I'm now 48, so I'm going to make my appointment next week. So thank you for sharing that story. So I'm Jeff Sargent, and I've been dealing with mental health issues since 2003. 2003 was a pretty difficult year. My dad basically lost his business. My mom died of glioblastoma. I got married, moved from the Philadelphia area to Summit, New Jersey, where I live today. I got a new job. We bought a house. So like all of these kind of major mental life stressors happened all at once. And I kind of collapsed, or I didn't kind of collapse, I did collapse. And it was the first time I really dealt with mental health issues. And then I got medicine and therapy, and I got through it, and then I found this wonderful job where I worked for almost a decade And I got myself through it. And then everything was going great until COVID. Shawn mentioned before about the kind of loneliness crisis, and I had my whole identity as this kind of Wall Street guy with a vest, living in Summit with the beautiful family. And I know there's one guy in Summit that was on my 18-year-old's, we both coached my 18-year-old's T-ball team together. So I had this wonderful life, and then COVID comes, and my whole identity changes, because I had my friends in the city, and my network, my office. They were trained to work with me and work with my team to get things done for clients, and that all went away. So I went through a real serious struggle to the point where August of 2021, it was so bad that I wanted to take my own life. And went to the hospital. My ex found this wonderful facility in Connecticut called Silver Hill. I spent a month there. Fabulous place. And by the end, I worked out every day. I lost 20 pounds. I did yoga every day. The patients were 23 to 75. Everybody got along. Found one of my favorite bands there. And by the end, I was like, I'm ready to go back to work. I want to get off of these medicines, and I'm ready to tackle the world again. But when you think about Einstein and his definition of insanity, when you go back and do the exact same thing over and over again, that's insane. And that's what happened. I had this wonderful experience at Silver Hill, came back into the exact same situation, and then within months, I was kind of back in the hospital. And this went on until March 9th, 2023. I'm back in the hospital, and I get the news that my ex-wife doesn't want to be with me anymore, because I was kind of told I was the fourth child, and she didn't, want to, take care of me anymore, which is fine, and I respect that. It was a lot because we were going through a lot, but from that day forward, I lost both my parents to cancer, so I didn't, her family was kind of like my family, so I lost some identity there as well. And I ended up going to live with my aunt, who I wasn't that close with, in north of Boston. And then I decided, I can't work for these big, kind of publicly traded, no offense that anybody worked for a publicly traded company, but a company where nobody cares about the client, and it's all about protecting your job and managing up. Because my dad was an entrepreneur, and he told it as it was, and he'd always say, what's in the mind comes out the mouth, and that's exactly how I operate, which makes me pretty successful, but at the same time, I get in a lot of trouble at the same time. So, I decided I want to be an entrepreneur, and that's what I've been doing for the last 3 or so years, is kind of focusing on what matters to me, and using my world in finance to help fund impact investment in companies such as cancer. That's where both my parents died of cancer. Mental health businesses, from everything that I've gone through. AI. I have a great client in Boston who wrote the Python code, and we do a lot of work in AI. And then sustainable energy, powering AI using sustainable means. So that's what I do for my day job. But about a year ago, my mentor that I worked with at City National Bank almost 20 years ago just liked something on LinkedIn, and it happened to hit my algorithm. And when I was at Silver Hill, I actually thought about leaving Wall Street and developing kind of an AA model, like an Alcoholics Anonymous model, because I've been to a lot of AA meetings, and I still go from time to time, because it's like free therapy. And I was like, I should do this for men, because men are like me, and you're the provider, and the it's all about having this image, having this avatar of me wearing a vest, being a finance guy in New York, living in Summit with the family and the house and all that. And when that stops, you know, it's very lonely. And, you know, I isolated. The only people I talked to were my therapist and my kids, and that was it for 2 years. And, you know, I worked and was kind of underemployed during that, you know, 2-year time period, but it was a real challenging time. So what I found through the Real, which is the foundation, that I found that my mentor clicked like, and I got to Shawn Lesser, who's the founder of the Real, was Shawn went through the exact same thing that I did a year later in 2022. Shawn worked for and founded the largest impact investment bank in the world, and he froze on a Zoom call, and he wanted to end his life as well. He went away to some rehabs a couple of times, and he came back, and his mentor said, "Dude, that was real." And he said, "That's it." He said, "That's what I'm calling it, the Real Mental Health Foundation." So Shawn's a good marketer. The Real is basically, I break it down to one thing, and it's the Real Talks. We do these calls on a monthly basis with the Real ambassadors. There are 750 of us. And the allies, which are the women, which we have a couple of allies right here, Lauren and Marcia Nelson, wearing their Real hats. They do their own calls, and it's all about community. And, you know, Jacob, who's one of our fellow executive ambassadors, which Shawn and I are both executive ambassadors, there's about 10 of us, right? Out of the 750. And we break out into pods, you know, for an hour. And we do, you know, 4 or 5 different sessions, and you go around the room and you tell you who you are, and you just talk. It doesn't have to be about mental health. It can be about the weather or sports or whatever, but a lot of times it leads to business. And people are passionate about their purpose and their business, and then, you know, guy has an impact business, like, oh, I can help with that. I have a family office that can invest in that. Let's do a call. And that's just how it works, is the network and the power of community. And I'll leave with this, is the one thing that I did when I was in my really dark place for a couple of years, and it still comes back. I mean, the depression is still there. I mean, it's not going away. I mean, I dealt with it recently. You know, my son's going through some issues, and it's come back. But you know what? Now, compared to 3 years ago, I'm not letting it win. I'm not giving up. I'm calling. I'm making phone calls. I'm sending texts. I'm like, yeah, I have community now. I'm not going to let this win. And that's the power of the Real. I mean, we also have conferences 3 times a year: New York, Davos, London. London's coming up June 4th, I think. Shawn does a great job with these conferences. There's 250 people there, mostly impact investors and companies and mental health advocates. And then we do Real walks every third Saturday of every month, where you wear your Real hat and you take a picture and post it on LinkedIn. And it's interesting because I'm securities licensed. I never really did a lot on LinkedIn. Now, over the last 8 or 9 months, I've picked up like 1,500 new followers by simply posting my picture with my Real hat. And it's really an honor. I told the guys, we have like a text string with the executive ambassadors, and I was on my way here. I'm suited up. I got my uniform on. I'm ready for Kyle's. And Kyle's our youngest ambassador at age 24, wearing his Real hat here. So the Real is the reason I'm here. It's because I hit that man right there, and he's doing some amazing things with this organization. So I've talked for like 10 minutes, so I think I'm going to stop talking now. So thank you.
Thanks, Jeff. Haywire. Have been on these Zoom calls that aren't networking calls, but turn into networking calls, right? Like how many of you have been on some of those, and or you're just zoomed out? And you get in awkward conversations. I appreciate our monthly calls because we've already taken the barriers down at the Real, because we know what we're all there for. You're tied in some way to some, mental health challenge. And I've worked in healthcare for a lot of years, and I still challenge our industry. Can we please call it something else? And I started to use this term called emotional health, right? Like, how do we get our emotions healthy and create a space for that? And give permission in this time that it's okay. You can have bad days. You're not supposed to have 365 days of good days every year. But we have built such a society that we don't want to talk about our emotional health. And so breaking that stigma, that's why I love what Kyle's doing, because I do think, I have a 17-year-old daughter. Any of you have any parenting advice for 17-year-old daughters? Because she actually just texted me before I was coming on the stage. That's why I even brought my phone up. She's like, did you remember to move money over so I can go get my coffee? I said, did you remember to get a job? Right? So any advice there? But my wife and I talk about this all the time. I could not be a teenager today. I could not be anyone in their 20s today, because the damn stuff that we did at that age, if we would have had social media, I would be in jail, first off. I see a lot of heads nodding, right? But the pressure that's on our young adults and our kids, and that's why I love what The Real is doing, that's what I love what Kyle's doing. I'm actually president of a board for an organization out of Colorado called the Good Life Movement. And Kyle, I know you know about Jono and the Good Life Movement. And we are actually proposing in the next 5 to 7 years, much like there is the Civil Rights Act in legislation that happened, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, to actually write a mental rights act. Or an emotional rights act. And so we've been drafting it. We actually do have it somewhat drafted. Not to be political, but this is probably not the time to try to push legislation through around mental health and emotional rights. So we're looking at it from an advocacy standpoint right now, and looking to partner with other organizations. I'm privileged enough to have a voice on LinkedIn. So if you are out there on LinkedIn, please go follow me. I have about 117,000 followers on LinkedIn. I chose not to go the route where everyone else did, but I chose to go the route where I thought people needed it more, was just in business and to talk. And so I talk very openly about my journey, my struggles. We're waiting until I get my next round of test results finished and my treatment, and then I will post around, here we go again. Third time at this, fighting this. This time it is been diagnosed as metastatic. So we've got to take a whole different course of life, because I'm determined that I'm 53, I want to at least see 60 and not let this disease take me. And so please, I will say this, and we don't need to probably say much more. I mean, we sort of reach out. If you're not on LinkedIn, come find me today. I give my phone number to anybody. I text with anybody. I told you my second career I was a pastor, so I had to quit pastoring, because in my world, in the denomination I was involved in, if I wanted to say shit, fuck, or damn, it was not a good thing. Or have a drink. And I like to go to a casino too, so it was just not the right thing. That's right. And so I tell people, whatever you believe in, whatever higher being took me to the marketplace to be a pastor there and to be that for other people. So Kyle, thank you. Thank you to everyone today for opening the stage up for us.
Yeah, I just want to end with this, that very grateful for Kyle, and I met him on one of our Real Talks, like in October, November, and Shawn introduced him as the youngest ambassador, and I was like, wow, this guy is really impressive. He's got this kind of impact battery business that he's running, and then he's running TRIIBE at the same time, and he's just a really impressive guy at 24. He just turned 24, so last week, right? Yeah, this week, yeah. So And when Kyle reached out and asked me to speak, I said, you know, you had me at a hello. So I'm very grateful to be here and very grateful to put on the uniform and suit up for. I was a state champion wrestler, so it always comes back down to back to sports analogies. So especially.
You have other color hats.
We do, and we have the Man on Fire Blue coming out.
My Man on Fire Blue. So if you like blue.
Yes,
And I hear that they're all showing off some of these hats.
And then we have the Kevin Hines green, and I kind of take credit for the preppy guy, navy blue too. So the Man on Fly, yeah. And yeah, we have a lot of different hats, and Lauren here has her pink hat that it's not on, but it's coming. But yeah, the merch shop at the Real.care is on fire. So go ahead and check it out. But yeah, no, we're really honored to be here and kind of spread the message about mental health awareness, but especially men's mental health awareness, because men don't talk about it, and we isolate and we ignore, and that's the opposite.
The opposite of what you need to do. You need to have community that reach out to you. And that's exactly what.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, I'm auctioning off.
You're back. You're back. Dr. Jeff, just want to get you a function. Like, no.
Is the one on stage still working?
This one works. Okay, so Kyle, we're gonna play the video.
Do we have
Maybe not. Okay.
Unfortunately, I don't think so, my friend.
All right. Well, now we're not gonna get as much money for it, but that's okay.
Oh wait, she said she'll find it. She'll find it. Everyone look at me so you don't see the behind the scenes of the camera.
Do you have it?
Did you email it to me?
I texted it to Kyle.
Oh, Kyle, do you have the video?
All right. Well,
And now Nick will do an interpretive dance on philanthropy. Right?
Listen to the sound of my voice.
Hello for the younger audience.
that's an old movie. That's our generation, Scott.
If we could, for a moment, while we're waiting for the video to sort of come up, could I ask a quick question?
Yes, go ahead.
This idea of leading with vulnerability, why and how, and I'm sure it must feel uncomfortable, even though you've told your stories so many times, to tell it to a new crowd every time. Do you still get the butterflies? Are you scared that speaking of it might bring it back one day, or how do you navigate that?
Yeah, I mean, the question is about vulnerability and leading with vulnerability, and yeah, I mean, I was an alpha male. You know, I was a high school football letterman, state champion wrestler, lacrosse, you know, all-star. So I was this alpha male, and then all of a sudden I got depression, and this was the exact opposite of what my avatar was. And you know, coming out of it, what really helped me was community. And now I'm so grateful for my community that I've talked. I think this is my 6th talk I've done on this very thing. So you know, I talked in London 3 weeks ago as a result of the reel on this very topic. So yeah, I mean, it's not comfortable because that's not what alpha males do, but you know, I'm trying to break that mold. And my goal today is if I reach one male who is struggling and I can change that perspective of that one individual, then I've succeeded.
Amen.
All right, do you have Death Bridge? All right, here's Death Bridge from Kevin Hines.